We're going to use the Surf Prep sanding system today in the electric version, the Surf Prep Surge, to show you how effective this tool can be in stripping stain from an entryway, a doorway. This stain was applied in 2009, and it has, because of the oxidation of the sun and everything, the coating and the stain has been impacted negatively by that, and we're going to strip this and restain it and recoat it. How we're going to do that is with the electric surge. How we're going to keep this real simple. The electric surge, you've heard me before reference the power supply as being like a compressor, and there's a reason for that. How we hook this up is we take the AC cord, plug it into our extension cord, in this case here, and then we take the DC part of this and we connect it directly into the power supply, and we securely tighten that nut down on there. Before we turn any power on, we want to make sure that we take the other end of this and attach it directly to the back of the surge, just like this, and securely tighten that on there. Once we do that, we hit our power supply, switch it on, you'll see the amber or the red light turn on, and you'll see the green DC OK light up. We then hit either of the minus or the plus buttons. I just hit the plus. That fires the tool up. We're ready to go. Now, we don't put the Surf Prep film sanding sheets directly onto our backup pad. What I want to do is use the pad saver. This is the 3x4 pad saver. We want to put this on because we want to protect the corners and the hooks on the back of this before we sand. This application that you're going to notice, what you're going to notice here is it's really demanding, and we need to cut fast and level through it quickly. And in order to do that, you will experience damage on that backup pad unless you have a pad saver. I'm going to start with grit P100 and our Surf Prep 3x4 film. We're going to attach that on there, and we're going to go to work. What you're noticing here on this threshold area, we had some built up stain. I simply took a putty knife and I just scraped it over some of those built up areas to release that material so we don't have to sand through it. You can see how that's coming loose there. And I've done this in other areas as well. One thing to notice about this tool, I've taken this black cap off the rear of it so that you can see the pad support. These pads support these white composite supports here. There's one in the rear here and there's one in the front. This tool is very different. It's a perfect orbit when it operates and when it runs. What you want to do is get a feel for your sanding when you're sanding with this tool, and develop the muscle memory to just hold it. It's very simple to do, but you'll get the feel of how it glides over the surface and you won't get any of that chattering. So here we go. I'm going to throw my dust mask on and we're going to start sanding this part of the threshold over here. All right, here we go. We always start with the sander on the substrate we're sanding. You can see how quickly it removes that old stain, and because it's a square sander, it goes right into these areas like these corners. You can see how nicely that takes that old stain right off there, gets us right down to that knotty alder. You can see how much dust this creates. It really cuts through that stain. We don't remove the tool real fast or anything. Just let it kind of glide and flow along the area you're sanding. Now, when we come into this corner area here, I'm not going to use the tool like this. I'm going to turn it around and use the front edge of the pad like this. So on this profile, on the molding here, we're going to get this flat area first. I'm going to bring the front of the tool into it, same way. I'm going to follow that line. and strip that stain right off there. We're not going to take away from the detail here in this area. When you're running the tool, I'm operating the tool right now at 9,000 RPM. You can drop it down to 7,000 RPM if you need to. So how are we going to sand the bottom piece of this side window? We're going to bring the 3x4 sander right in like this. Follow right along. I'm actually lifting the rear end of the tool up just a little bit. We're going to turn the tool like this, and it's small enough. I just turn the tool around. Clean right up into that corner. You're saving a tremendous amount of time. You'll notice on the Surf Prep 3x4 film that as we sand, the white sacrificial stair rate dissipates and moves away. I still have a tremendous amount of grain there. What I'll do is I will take this pad, this film sheet, I'll turn it around. I'm not going to throw that away. I've got all brand new grain here to use. Now I'll come into this corner and I'm going to cut right through that stain. Just like you see here. What's amazing is this little rectangular sander is so operator friendly and user friendly that you can get into those hard to reach corners. Okay, we did this base here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my sandpaper forward just a little bit. Just a tiny little bit, so that I can now come in from up above and get this side area. The 3x4 tool is really easy to manage and handle. I've completely sanded that whole area. Now as I move my way up here, and you don't have to worry about which direction you move the tool, you don't have to sand in line with the grain. The perfect orbit pattern on this, the 3mm orbit pattern, allows you to take the tool in any direction really. And you'll see here I just start to move up towards this knot. Okay, you may be wondering how we're going to remove the stain from this molding here. I'm not going to use the 3x4 electric surge. What I am going to do though is I'm going to take my same Surf Prep P100 sheet and I'm going to put it on this block and I'm going to offset the sheet to hang over the edge to wrap just a little bit. So we're going to bring this into this molding here and you'll see how quickly with the 3x4 hand block you can see how I'm coming in here and I'm cutting through that stain. Now when you use one edge and that starts to lose its cut rate, just flip the block around and remember to offset your sheet like this, bring it over here, and then you can drop that back down into here and you can now get this opposing edge. How do we get this on this outer surface? This block will wrap and profile that, and you'll see that just by wrapping it around we can hit that area as well. And using the sander on Saturday, I was running it a good 3 hours straight. If you securely tighten this nut down on here, you're never going to have this cable come apart. And that's critical. You got to make sure you're securely tightened into this area here because you're torquing and moving the tool. That never came loose on me. The other thing is the tool will get hot. It'll get warm, but you don't feel it in the grip or anything. And you got to remember it's a DC motor, so our energy costs for the homeowner here, if I ran this tool 8 hours a day, 240 days a year at this property site, the homeowner would pay about $7 in energy. It's going to be pennies to strip through this whole thing because it's DC. On Saturday, I started this project. Saturday, I used 2 P100 3x4 sheets. I'm on my third now, and you can see a lot of the surface area that I've already hit, the threshold and a lot of the molding, and I've done a lot of side work as well. The Surf Prep 3x4 film, with the sacrificial serrate on it, the white serrate, it just cuts and cuts and cuts. If you start to get some loading on the abrasive, all I do, if I get into some very, very heavy areas of stain where the heat that's caused during sanding, I'll take and roll the abrasive, and these little buildup areas pop right out, and you can keep sanding. If you've been in the industry a while, you may or may not be aware, we were honored this past July at the Las Vegas AWFS Woodworking Show to be selected as the only abrasive company to win the Visionary Award for a comprehensive sanding system that focuses on reducing your labor costs and material costs. If you're not real familiar with the system, what I want to share with you now is we talked about leveling through and cutting through this stain where we use film, Surf Prep film with a pad saver, okay? I'm going to take this off, and I'm going to simply now take my Surf Prep Medium Plus, which is the equivalent of about a 180 scratch, and I'm just going to put that on my same backup pad. No changing out backup pads or anything. In preparation for my stain, I'm now going to float this right over here. You can see the dust that's being removed, but I'm now fine-tuning that scratch that was left on there from removing the stain, and I'm leaving a very nice scratch to where I get nice, even stain penetration. So that's right on top of that knotty alder. And so that is when we will go to Surf Prep 5mm foam. You don't want to use 5mm foam or any of our other foam on this flat stock removal area, or I guess I should say stripping area, because this will not strip down through the stain like Surf Prep film. That's the reason we have all the different grits of product, both in foam and our film back product. This system, we've designed it with our manufacturer to be industrial grade quality, meaning that there are cabinet shops around the world that are now using the Surf Prep sanding system. The power supply, or what I like to refer to as the compressor, I always want this laying on the ground or secured, attached somewhere securely to a workbench or a table. If you don't, you can see this is my personal unit that I carry with me. I have bent this plate from dropping this. This was on a table, it fell on the ground, and it dropped and it bent this aluminum plate. In spite of that, the reason I'm sharing that with you is the durability of this is such that it doesn't damage the tool. So as long as you keep these connections secured tightly, this thing will run years and years and years for you.